We are back, people. What is up? How y'all doing? Going over my expectations for the Dolphins 2024 season. We're almost there. It's finally upon us. Football, NFL starts in just a couple of days. Dolphins play on Sunday and then have a quick turnaround also to play their second week as a Thursday game. So we got a lot of, Dolphins games coming up. I will do a Jaguars breakdown at some point this week, probably like Saturday, just to preview what we're expecting from them, that matchup. But I just wanted to go over all the position groups and sort of my expectations for each group, specific players, people I'm kind of expecting to take a jump, players I'm higher on, things like that. First, what's up, Derek? How you doing? But yeah, well, I guess there's also there was some news. Dolphins announced their captains. I think it was 8 of them. Yeah, it was Tua, Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, David Long Jr. What wanted me to talk about? Oh yeah, with Chris Brooks, because people were asking me questions about Brooks. Oh god, okay. Yeah, they're asking me questions about Chris Brooks and the thing with him that it came to with because they waived/injured him. The Dolphins did reach an injury settlement with Chris Brooks, which means he is now a free agent and teams can sign him, but there's an injury settlement that if they give him 4 weeks of pay or something like that, 4 or 5 weeks of pay, then they have to wait 3 weeks extra after that until they could possibly sign him back. So we'll see how that all plays out. It's kind of confusing, but fresh cut get to butt. Okay. Starting. Well, I guess we'll start with the quarterback group. And by the quarterback group, I just mean Tua because I don't really have anything else too much to say about the rest of the group. And really, it just comes down to Tua. I think my expectations for Tua this season, obviously, I think I have pretty high expectations. Every single year, I kind of expect Tua to get slightly better and, improve in the areas he kind of struggled in the year before. So really what I'm looking for with the early games, especially with Tua, I want to see how active he is within the pocket. I don't need to see him being running a lot but I want to see more creative plays with his legs, whether that's working off script, just some extra movement within the pocket to give himself an extra half second, that type of thing. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for Tua. And then potentially, still doing what he does best, playing on time, accuracy, anticipation, making up for the offensive line, that type of, that's what he does best, and playing within, the system. And then I'm excited to see how the new, because it seems like McDaniel talked about it, there's going to be new sort of concepts to work off Tua losing weight, being more active with his feet, and maybe he can create some more with his legs. And then I'm also going to see how he goes through his progressions when he does get time. Is he, if his first read's not there, how he is, working off that type of thing. So that's kind of, I think, the main thing when it comes to Tua. Very high expectations. I expect him to be statistically pretty high. I don't put too much stock in statistics. It can always. But yeah, basically high expectations overall. I know people are rolling in here, but so we can go over a little bit more on the Tua front. But so yeah, we're starting with the quarterback position. Only talking about Tua pretty much because the rest of the group I don't really care if we have to see them play. It's probably not looking good for you, but I think the biggest thing when it comes to this season for Tua specifically is being able to make more plays off script, whether that's him running or just creating a little bit extra time, in the pocket, and also just getting out of the pocket, throwing the ball, and then because I still expect him to be high statistics the whole time, even though, stats don't always tell the whole story, but I think within this system, with the team around him, he's going to put up good stats. He's going to throw the ball a lot. His accuracy, his anticipation, he's going to be throwing the ball down the field. His EPA is going to be high. All those things are expected. It's just, I think, doing a little bit more off script, kind of like what he did in the Chargers game. I'm not saying he needs to put up 460 yards every game, but how he made multiple plays off script last week 1, I'm kind of expecting seeing that more on a week-to-week basis. Not a crazy jump, but I think that's kind of, I didn't change my camera. I don't know. Whatever. I'll fix it next time. Maybe I'm just gonna sit up. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for the quarterback room. I'm expecting a slight improvement because Tua does usually get better every single year. I think he'll get better in those areas. And I also just want to see how, and this is a whole team thing, honestly, just how they look in bigger games. Because I do think that whole narrative is slightly overplayed and like gets specific on Tua. I think it's more of a team thing, but looking mostly on Tua, I expect a nice little jump, and I don't know how he'll be seen around the league by like fans and nationally. I don't think there's not much he can do to change people's opinions at this point. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel about the quarterback room. Skyler, whatever. I'm not even going to talk about Tim Boyle. But yeah, just specifically with Tua. And then we'll go to the running back room next. I think one of the strongest groups on the team and just one of the strongest running back groups in the league. Third year in the same system. Yeah, it's another good point there from Scotty. Definitely familiarity. It seems, and just like everything we've heard about Tua, like players talking about him, he seems even more vocal. He was a captain, obviously. We got the fight song going on here. But with the running back group, we can go to them next. I think, obviously, very high expectations for the running back room. I think it's one of the best. It's one of the best groups in the league, just overall, and it's also one of the best when it comes to just for the Dolphins. I think we're gonna see a nice rotation. I think it's not. I don't know if anyone's gonna just like lead the backfield. I think week to week things will change. Certain players will get more carries depending on like hot hands. I think he's gonna, definitely be sticking, with whoever's playing really well. But I think we'll see Mostert out there early on. I think the Dolphins are going to run a lot of 21 personnel, so we'll see Mostert, we'll see Achane. And then I think early on we'll probably see some Jeff Wilson in there, but I think early we'll see Jalen Wright start to get in that rotation. Maybe not in the first couple games, but down the line, I think I probably have higher expectations for Wright. I think it's, the running back room, we have a lot of like Mostert, Achane, Wilson have all struggled with some injuries. I think we're going to see Jalen Wright fairly early. I think Mostert won't be as productive as last year. I think keeping up that type of touchdown production is very, very difficult. So I'm not expecting him to be like statistically that good, especially in the touchdown category. I think he'll still be pretty efficient as a runner, have some big plays here and there. But really, when it comes down to it, I'm like, Achane is going to be that big piece. I expect an even bigger jump next year, specifically as a receiver. And I think he'll be even better. I think he put on some weight. He'll break some tackles. He plays bigger than expected anyways. I'm very, very high on Achane. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's like our best player by the end of the season, just with how explosive he is. Very, very... Ryder, how goes your day? How good, man? With our lads. Oh, I actually am on our lads right now. Let me see who they have listed. I mean, it will probably be pretty close to this, but I don't know. Is it running an ad? But yeah, we can. I think we're going to see Achane be a big time player, big explosiveness, more receiving usage, especially with the receiver injuries. We'll talk about the receiver group here in a second, but like with Tyreek Waddle, I wouldn't be surprised if Achane gets a ton of work. I think we're going to see more, underneath stuff, just like dump offs, getting him involved. That would be huge. But yeah, I have very high expectations for Achane. He was one of the most efficient running backs in the NFL last year, and I just feel like if he stays healthy, he's going to put up some crazy numbers, like all-purpose, receiving, running, all that stuff. I think Wilson will be fine. If like Wilson has to play, I think you're doing, there's worse running backs to have, but I'm not super high on Jeff Wilson. I don't have like super high expectations for him. I think there will be like maybe a game or two where he makes like an impact play or something like that. Like last year when he closed out versus the Cowboys, that type of thing. But I'm not expecting anything like crazy, consistent production out of them. It really, I think O-line is big for him because he's not like the big get him out on the edge type of player. But we'll see how that works out. And then, yeah, Jalen Wright, big expectations. Not expecting them right away, but at like mid-season, I think he's going to get some work. And yeah. Right, I didn't miss your answer to my question. Yeah, was it about the roster? Yeah, I'm on our lads right now. I think if everyone's healthy, like if Brewer's healthy, I think this would be the O-line. Yeah, probably pretty close. The tight end room is weird because they have Jonnu as tight end 1. I think technically, I wouldn't be surprised if Durham Smythe and Julian Hill are like on the field first because they're run blocker Y types. but then Johnny Smith rotates. So I don't think that really matters too much with how that's listed. Some of these positions don't really matter. They have Chop starting. I don't know if we'll see Chop start. That's the other one. They might have Ogba on the field, but Chop will definitely get his pass rush work. And then the DB room, I think, is pretty correct. And then I agree with the D-line and stuff and the linebackers, if they're all healthy. What was asked? Sorry, let me see. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Scotty's playing the 21 and 12 personnel. Let me... Yeah, basically 21%. So there's 21, 11. There's a bunch of different numbers, but the first number is the running back. So 21 is there's 2 running backs, 1 tight end, which also that equals 2 receivers. You don't need to say 2 receivers for that, but that's what it adds up to. Like 11 personnel would be 1 running back, 1 tight end, and then 12 would be 1 running back, 2 tight ends, that type of thing. Dolphins run more 21, 2 running backs, 1 tight end than like most teams in the league. I think we're going to see more 11 and 12 this year, which will be interesting, I think, with the people they added. But we're still going to see a ton of 21. Yeah, I agree. They'll probably have technically... Like, Mostert's listed as tight end 1, and then Johnny's listed as... Or Mostert's listed as RB1, but I wouldn't be surprised if, like, you know, Achane puts up the best stats. And then, like, Johnny Smith's listed as tight end 1. I won't be surprised if Durham's technically the one that starts, but Johnny still gets a ton of work, that type of thing. Let me see. Okay. I guess I didn't talk about Alec Ingold. He's kind of a part of that group. Fullback, I feel pretty confident that he'll just be solid again. Nothing too crazy to talk about. Solid expectations. He's gets the job done, captain, high, character, veteran type player. Like having him on the team, so pretty good stuff there. I think from just the whole running back group, it's a very strong group for the roster and very just strong group around the league. I think health is probably the biggest key for that entire group because they've all kind of had their injury histories. Next, we'll go to receivers. The receiver group. Health is another big thing here because technically we only have 5 on the roster. We have Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Braxton Berrios, Grant DuBose, and Malik Washington. And then you also have on the practice squad, which I will also talk about these guys because I think that kind of adds up for the practice squad. Eric Ezukanma, D. Eskridge. You also have Robbie Chosen. I will not be surprised if early on, especially with OBJ, and we have OBJ and Craycraft on like PUP and IR, I wouldn't be surprised if we see early elevations at the wide receiver position. I think that's going to be pretty likely. They'll elevate a 6th guy, whether that's Chosen because he has experience early on, or Ezukanma to get him around, or maybe they get Eskridge going at some point because he can also be a returner if that's needed. I think we probably wouldn't see Eskridge unless like Malik or Berrios were out with time. And we don't know how fast DuBose has gotten up to, like to speed with him being new to the system, that type of thing. So we'll probably see a lot. Yeah, Scotty said a lot of 12 personnel help. Yeah, I think a lot of 12 and 21 early. And then once we get our receivers back like OBJ, Craycraft, I think we're going to start going to more 11. I think that's something they want to do more of. But obviously, I think this could be a huge... If Waddle stays healthy, I think this is a huge year for Waddle. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Waddle puts up, like, Tyreek level stats, because Tyreek's going to be amazing. Like, I don't see him taking a step off. I still think he's going to do amazing. He fits the system perfectly. I think Waddle missed some games last year, but it also was just banged up the whole year. Like, he was just playing through injuries. Love his toughness. But also, I feel like Waddle looks different from everything I've seen. The clips of him, he looks even more explosive, more familiarity with the system. I think we'll see kind of that first year in the system where he had like a super high yards per catch. I think we're going to go closer to that than what we saw this past season, and I have very high expectations for Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, obviously. Yeah, 1,500, I would not be surprised if it's like around that, if they both have like around 15. Whether it's 16, 14, 17, 13, I wouldn't be surprised if they're both very, very high up there. But yeah, and then the rest of the group, the rest of the starters who I think, which we really have to talk about is because we'll start with, who should we start? We'll start with Berrios because they have Berrios listed here first. Berrios, it seems like Braxton's one of the players most people are pretty down on, but he will make a special teams impact. I expect Berrios to be the punt returner early on at least, and the kick returner with Malik back there with him as well. That's kind of what I'm seeing with the special teams. So I think he's going to make a special teams impact. Wouldn't be surprised if Malik overtakes him at some point, though. That's something to remember. He does understand the system, so I think he'll be more involved in the offense early on in the season than later on, especially once like guys come back from injuries. You have DuBose and Malik behind him who are, younger guys. DuBose just getting in the system. Washington is a rookie. So I think Berrios will be a part of the offense early. He'll probably have a couple catches on like third down. He'll convert. That's kind of like where I would expect him to make an impact on offense. I'm not super high on him as a player, but I do think he will see some work early on. We just can't get rid of it. Yeah, true. Like, I don't think having Berrios is that bad. I just think it's fine if he's like your last receiver and a special teams player. I just think he's going to have to be a little higher up on the depth chart earlier on than what we would want, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I think he can make some impact plays, but don't have super high expectations for him as a player. After that, Malik Washington. You guys know me. I love Malik. I've been very high on Malik Washington for a very long time. One of my favorite players that we drafted, and it just looked like he kept getting more and more comfortable. I loved his usage. It felt like the game slowed down for him in the preseason week 3. I just want to see more work as a receiver, and they were playing him a lot on the outside. Like, I do think he is more of a slot receiver type, but they're giving him some outside looks, and that's because they do run a lot of 2 receiver sets, like we talked about, 21 and 12. That is 2 receiver stuff, so you kind of have to play on the outside in a lot of those looks. But Malik, I think he's just going to get, like, I wouldn't even be, like, surprised if he saw early playing time just because of the injuries, but I think he's going to get more and more comfortable within the system. I think for a 6th round pick, usually 6th round picks aren't super productive. I think he'll outplay the 6th round pick, like, like that spot. Like, he'll outplay the value of it, but he'll be a pretty solid player for us this season. I think I'm expecting a bigger impact than some people are expecting. It's not going to be like a crazy impact because Waddle and Tyreek are still going to be featured. We're still going to use a lot of running backs. I think we're going to use more tight ends this year. So I don't need a ton from him, but I'm thinking we're getting a few touches a game out of Malik as the year goes on, and he'll try to make the most of it. I think we'll get design touches to him. We'll let him go to work on screens. He's got pretty good contact balance, plays bigger than his size. I saw some fan predictions on him, Malik on the 53. Yeah, I remember people were on that train for a little bit. That was crazy. Definitely don't agree with that, but I do think Washington will see some time early on. Maybe not week 1. Maybe they'll elevate guys like Ezukanma and Chosen and get them working or something like that. I wouldn't do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I think he'll get in the rotation pretty early, but maybe not a ton touches until like we're a few weeks in. Grant DuBose, he's going to come in and do the dirty work. Like, think of what River was doing. If he's up to speed with the offense, I think he's going to come in right away. He'll see some, whether he's seeing like targets, I don't think he'll see a ton of targets, but I think he's going to come in. He's going to be involved as a blocker. He's going to see some rotation. He's going to run clear out routes and then maybe get a target here or there, get the ball thrown up to him. He is a bigger body in the room, very physical. He'll probably see special teams work too, whether it's as a gunner or just on like kickoff, things like that. Because I don't know if he'll be he can play gunner if needed, but we do have gunners kind of filled right now. And he's pretty good at it. So I like DuBose. I think he's like the ideal 5th receiver that can come in, do special teams work, do the dirty work as a blocker. He also has some traits to work with that could be developed down the line to be a receiver, but I don't expect too much of that right away. I'll be pissed if they elevate. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they elevate like a Ezukanma, and they're all active at receiver, and they all see some time. But yeah, that would bother me, especially if it was Chosen and they actually kept like Malik inactive. That would bother me for sure. But I think Malik will be active because I think he's going to be the 2nd kick returner. At least that's what my guess is. I'm trying to see, who do they have listed? They technically have Achane listed as the 2nd kick returner, but I don't know if they're going to do that, but maybe they will. I'd be a little surprised. What do you think? Yeah. I don't know if I know Ramsey wasn't practicing the other day. I don't know about today though, if there was that type of thing going on. But I'm not too concerned when it comes to Jalen. And yeah, the rest of the wide receivers, Ezukanma, I'm sure will get elevated. I think he's one of the most likely practice squad guys to get elevated. And maybe if there's injuries, he goes up to the main roster at some point. The rest of the room, I like Eskridge as a practice squad body. Chosen, I don't really have strong opinions. I don't think he's the best fit for the system, but he does understand the system at least because he played here last year. But personally, I just don't have super high hopes for him. And then let's go to the tight end room. I love the tight end room. I actually like all 4 of these players. Like, we don't have like one big time stud, and maybe that's somewhere they go in the future to get like some guy who's like all of these things, but they have like great traits just spread out throughout all of them pretty much. You have Durham Smythe, kind of the old reliable, been around in the system, veteran player, knows where to be, gets his job done. He's not going to wow you. There's not a bunch of that, big time plays being made. He'll catch the ball over the middle. He's not going to get a ton after the catch. But I think Smythe, if I had to guess, I think this is probably the last year where Smythe is like going to be tight end 1, whether it goes to like just to think of like rotation. I still think he'll technically be tight end 1. But I do think his playing time will start to decrease a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. Because I think Julian Hill is someone that can take snaps away. I made a video on Julian Hill the other day. That guy, Julian Hill, is going to take a huge jump in my opinion. Maybe a huge jump is gassing a little bit, but I expect a jump from Julian Hill. I think as a receiver, I think he brings more upside as a receiver than Smythe did, and they both play with that wide tight end, like an inline tight end guy. And then Julian Hill is also a better blocker already, in my opinion. He gets more explosive blocks. He displaces defenders. He blocks edge defender, moves him out of the way. He's also a better on the move as a blocker. And then we saw how, as a receiver, he started to elevate a little bit more, just especially with the ball in his hands. Like, he is trying to hurt people out there, run people over. Very difficult to bring down. So if he can be more involved as a receiver down the field, and him and Tua can be on the same page, that's how I think he could see playing time over Smythe. But yeah. Cousins' blocking is atrocious. Yeah, that's why I don't think we need to see him, because we don't need, like, we already have some blockers. And Ezukanma is a better, like, Ezukanma is actually a pretty decent blocker. When he gets hands-on, like, he can bully some people. So I hope it's, if we do elevate a receiver, I hope it's easy, because he also has experience in the system. You can give him some design touches and he can do some stuff, but yeah. Huge jump is a Pro Bowl jump. I don't know if that's the case. I think he's a UDFA. I think a huge jump would be people recognizing him around the league as like a solid starter. That would be like a huge jump. But yeah, I get what you're saying. But like, I'm expecting a pretty big jump from him, because he's already showing that. Like, and I'm like, people are like hyping him up with the players and talking about him. He's taking a jump. And you saw, like, in his limited preseason snaps, he just looked so good as a blocker. He got work in the receiving game and was bullying people when he got the ball in his hands on that one Tua play. So I have pretty high expectations for Julian. Now the other tight ends, we'll go into Johnny Smith and Tanner Connor, who are more of your F tight ends, move tight end guys. Those are guys who can line up in the slot, play receiver, are going to be less likely to block. They're still going to have to block because, that's how, that position works and this offense works. You bet on Waddle's week 1? Yeah, I saw it was like 55, 56 and a half, something like that. But I think Jonnu Smith is going to see work early and often in this season. I think he's going to be a valuable part of the offense. I think it was something the Dolphins desperately missed on offense last year. That's why I think they added guys like Jonnu Smith and OBJ instead of going after the O-line. They wanted to attack that in a different way. They wanted to give Tua more options, especially in that intermediate part of the field. Intermediate middle part of the field, because Jonnu is very good with the ball in his hands. They have a lot of different packages for him. They're going to try to get him involved. And with Tyreek and Waddle out there taking so many eyes, Jonnu is a very explosive player, and I think he's pretty good. Like, I think he's kind of underrated, like, around the league. Like, he's not going to give you those blocking tight end reps that you really want, but we don't really need that out of him. Like, we just need that ability to get after the catch, break tackles, his contact, his ability to absorb tackles is so good. But yeah. But yeah, I really am excited to see Jonnu, who's one of the most excited players I'm excited to see. Yeah, ever since Gesicki left, we haven't run a ton of seams. I'm imagining we're going to see more of that from Jonnu. I don't think that's like his biggest strength. I think he can run seams and do a pretty good job stretching the field. Like, he's not bad at it for sure, and he's definitely our best tight end to do that. But I am excited to see really the after the catch, sitting down over the middle of the field. Like, if you watched the Dolphins last year, when they were running like their dagger concepts, which is like, that's when the slot is running vertical, Like the slot to the play side is running vertical, and then the outside receiver is running a deep dig. We ran that a ton, and we do it out of the cheat motion, Tyreek doing and all that stuff. When we were doing that, linebackers started gaining so much depth, like 20 yards of depth, like an unbelievable amount, which is crazy. And sometimes I would leave the middle of the field open for a tight end at like sitting at like 9, but we didn't take full advantage of it because we didn't have the tight ends that could really maximize those plays. Like obviously you can still get completions on it, but getting that to Jonnu Smith makes the team at least have to like either leave it open or respect it, and then that would help you, complete more of those passes down the field to Tyreek and Waddle. So that's why I really like the Jonnu Smith pickup. But yeah. Right, do you believe that McDaniel's able to play 100% of playbook, 90%, 50%? I'm saying he had to scale the playbook back. I think at this point, I don't think McDaniel has to scale it back. Unless there's like injuries. I think if there's no injuries and the offense is mostly healthy, like there's obviously going to be injuries, I don't think he's going to scale it back. I only think he scaled back the playbook last season towards the end of the season because we had so many injuries and the O-line. I think he had to scale it back a little bit, but yeah. I think in scaling it back is more like he just kind of stuck with like his main concepts, things that he knew that people could run. But if the team's healthy, I think everyone's got enough experience in the system and they're good enough to run those plays. But yeah. And then the other tight end, is Connor. And we also have Hayden Rucci on the practice squad. I like the Rucci addition to the practice squad. Good blocker. I think he can be a fun addition, but more he's a down the line type of player. And then Tanner Connor. They kept Tanner Connor as a fourth. Clearly, they like his evolution as a player. They kept him when they didn't need to. They've never kept 4 tight ends on the initial roster, especially with McDaniel being here. I feel like they like him a lot. He's actually the most probably fullback-like player of the tight end room, so he can give you fullback snaps if that's ever really needed. He's also been practicing injured, so I'm kind of expecting him to be more of a inactive player because you only really need the 3. I think he'll be more inactive until I think maybe an injury happens. Then we'll see him potentially get on the field. He can give you fullback reps. He's your Jonnu Smith backup. Yeah, Scotty, I agree. That's what I was thinking. But I think he's your Jonnu Smith backup. He plays your move tight end. Very athletic. Can give you receiver snaps. So if the receivers are injured and they want to roll with more tight ends, then you might start seeing more Connor roll in, when they want to run 12 and he gives you those outside receiver snaps. It looks like in the one preseason game he played, it looked like it was the most comfortable he's been as a receiver in the NFL. Very explosive. I think McDaniel really likes him. He's been trying to get this Tanner Connor thing going. And I think this is the year for him to get snaps. Will it have? If there's no injuries at the tight end positions, I think it will be very difficult for him to get the snaps. But injuries are inevitable, whether it's 1 game, 2 games, I do think Connor will have a moment at some point in the season, so it'll be interesting. But yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go into the Jags game, on a Saturday. I'm going to do a full breakdown, on that, on Saturday and really watch some of their film, that type of thing. I'm surprised we signed. Oh yeah. I talked about this a little bit earlier. The reason we did this is because, we waived/injured Brooks. So Brooks was injured, so we automatically reverted to our IR. But then we agreed, I think 2 days ago now, we agreed to an injury settlement. So now Chris Brooks is a free agent, but we cannot sign him for, we don't know the exact amount of time, but it's whatever they agreed the injury settlement would be, how many ever weeks they think Brooks is out with injury. They'll pay him for those weeks and then an additional 3 weeks. And then after that, if he's still not signed, then you can sign him back. So they are not allowed to sign Chris Brooks. He's either going to go somewhere else or wait it out and then potentially come back. But yeah, that's kind of the deal with Chris Brooks. Now the O-line group, everyone's favorite position group for the Dolphins. I guess we'll start with the tackles because I feel pretty good about the tackles. Yeah, I feel bad for Chris Brooks too. I think he's definitely an NFL player, but he's gotten unlucky with the injuries. We'll start with the tackle group. Teron Armstead, not much to say. If Armstead's healthy, high expectations. He's a very good player. It looks like he's been saying this is the best he's ever felt. So hopefully he plays the majority of the games. I'm not expecting every game, but I'm hoping for a majority of games. Yeah, I would like to see Brooks come back too. But yeah, no need to spend too much time there. Everyone kind of knows what to expect from Armstead if he's on the field. And we also know the injuries are pretty likely. Now behind, we'll go to Austin Jackson next. I think Jackson will look pretty similarly to how he looked last year. I think, so, you know, people, it's actually pretty funny. Like, think about a year ago at this time, people did not have high expectations for Austin Jackson. And now it's a player we don't even hear people talk about anymore because they're not really worried. So I think Austin Jackson will be a pretty solid player. They got him for a good price. I'm expecting a solid season. He's not going to be an elite player for you, but he gets the job done within this system. So I like Austin Jackson. I like him on the deal we got him. Usually you have to pay more for a decent right tackle. So definitely a lot of respect to Austin Jackson, though. Like, he improved so much. He was really young when he came into this league. And yeah. Thoughts on Jags pass rush? Yeah, I'll break this down for sure in the coming days. But it's the Jags have some players up front. It's going to be tough. But the way to beat it is think of it like this. It's less about the Jags pass rush versus RO line, and it's more about McDaniel and Tua versus their pass rush and how good the concepts are and how quickly Tua can get out the ball. Because if we have to hold on the ball a huge time, especially on like non-play actions, because it depends how well you run the ball. Because if we run the ball well and we're able to get our play action going, you can really slow down a pass rush and give Tua some time. Plus, he gets rid of the ball so quick. Jackson will. Yeah, I don't see Jackson as like a Pro Bowl or All Pro type player. I just think of him as like a pretty solid good. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Where would you say Austin at right now? I would say, it's kind of it is tough to evaluate our offensive line because of our system. I would say for our system, he's above average. Maybe if you consider him to the rest of the league, maybe he's only like slightly above average. But for our system, I think he's a good fit at right tackle and played well. But yeah, then we can get to the backup tackles, Kendall Lamb. I feel Kendall Lamb is a very solid swing tackle if he has to play. It's not the worst thing. We saw when our offensive line, when he's on the field, it's not that big of a fall off for the O-line. I do think for Armstead's a great player and you love to have him on the field, but it's not the worst thing in the world when Lamb has to play. He gets his job done. It's his final season. I like having him out there. But yeah. And then who else? We value more run blocking versus pass blocking. That is true. They value that on their old line because they know they can protect them in pass protection with the play calling. But yeah, Kendall Lamb, pretty solid player. Nothing too crazy to talk about there. Yeah, I think Jackson had an injury towards the back end of the year where he started to slow down a little bit. He wasn't playing as good. He definitely wasn't our worst O-lineman, but he was one of the O-linemen playing that was like playing through a pretty big injury. It was like a pec or a bicep or something. I can't remember. Did Matthew Jones end up on the practice squad? I don't think so. No, our practice squad is on the practice squad. We have Chasen Hines. That's the guard we have on the practice squad. If I could do my bold prediction, if Armstead goes out, we see Paul over Lamb. I don't think so. Maybe at some point, but not early on. Like if Armstead went out weeks, I don't think we'll see it. But who knows? I just don't think so. Is Cotton starting right guard or Liam? If Brewer's at center, it will be Liam, in my opinion. And that's also what it's listed on here. And then Patrick Paul. We talked a little bit about Patrick Paul. I don't have I think he played so much better in the preseason than I expected. Now, I don't have super high expectations for him this year. I think my expectations will kind of raise with him every single year. He's a player that still clearly needs development, but he showed a lot in the running game. He showed some very high-level pass protection reps, but also some really bad ones. So yeah, to me, he's like the fourth offensive tackle. If two players get hurt, then he'll get in. If not, then I don't think he'll play. That's just kind of my expectations there. So yeah. If my expectations will raise pretty drastically going into the next season. Now let's go to the interior line. We'll start with center. I think Brewer is very important to play. I think Brewer is one of the biggest pieces right now for this offensive line to play. Hopefully he can play right away. I do think there might be some growing pains in like early on potentially, like just like with him because he hasn't practiced too much. But he is starting to practice this week. He just got announced practicing the other day. That's huge. Will he play? I would lean towards yes. I would hope so because him not playing just kind of ruins the whole line because then you have to move Liam to center and then Cotton plays right guard and all that shenanigans. But Brewer playing helps the running game so much. Center is more important to guard in this system in the running game. The athleticism Brewer has is top tier, like elite athleticism. He might be the most athletic center in the league. He's a great run blocker. So I think he helps out the running game like substantially, like a lot. In pass protection, he's not the best pass protector, but the center in this system doesn't need to be the best pass protector. I think it'll all be fine. Like there might be some negative plays here or there, but you rarely get one-on-ones in this system. So the biggest thing is him being in there and just getting reps with Tua in this offense, and I think it helps out the running game. Cotton sucks. I really thought Driscoll was above him. Why didn't they cut Lester Cotton? This one, I actually don't know. I went back and watched the preseason film to watch Cotton and watch Driscoll. I thought Driscoll was not like Driscoll was insane or anything. Like I thought he had his negative reps and wasn't perfect. But I thought Driscoll was a decent amount better than Cotton, and especially for this system, I thought he was more athletic, just a better fit. I don't know why. I guess they just kept Cotton because of familiarity in the scheme. I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. If I had to guess, it was just because they thought Cotton understood the playbook more. Maybe Driscoll didn't learn it that well. But I thought Driscoll he could play backup center if you needed. He could play, I think he would play better guard. But that one, I don't understand that one still. Maybe, and Driscoll's still a free agent. Maybe he comes back. Who knows how it works out. But I don't know why that is the case. But getting into everyone else, I like Brewer a lot. I think people will be surprised how good Brewer plays, especially as a run blocker. So yeah. Then to the guards. The guards is where it's kind of ugly. You have Isaiah Wynn on PUP. I don't even know if he plays this season, so I'm not even going to spend time talking about Isaiah Wynn. Oh, we got left guard will be Robert Jones. I think Robert Jones will be your starting left guard for probably the season if he stays healthy. Robert Jones did not look good in the preseason. It was pretty ugly in the snaps he played. He didn't play a ton of snaps, but it was not good. So hopefully that's just, him, them not a little inconsistent. Oh God, I'm lagging. Hopefully you guys, I think I'm back. I disconnected for a second, so hopefully we're good. But yeah, the player-wise, I don't love the guard room. I think it's for weakest position, like talent-wise, player-wise, but it is the least important position for this Dolphins offense. Yeah, I lagged out for a second. But yeah, it's the least important position in this Dolphins offense, the guard position. They know they can scheme around it. Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg are actually not that bad run blockers, and that's kind of like, if you can do your job in the running game, just cut people off and like understand exactly where you're supposed to be, you'll be fine. Like they had good reps last year as run blockers, both of them. Pass protectors, especially Eichenberg, but in this system, for the most part, they can kind of maneuver around it. This is kind of just the way it's worked, and like going like this whole tree, the Shanahan tree, whether it was Mike or Kyle, this is what they've done. I know people are going to be disappointed by it. I would have added at least one more decent player to the mix, but they feel like this was the one way they could get away with it. Yeah, it was freezing. Any chance? No. Patrick Paul will not play guard, and I don't know if he'll ever play. I don't think he should ever play guard in his career. That's just, he is not that type of player. Is it still lagging? I think it says it's good now, so unless it's like, at least for the last like 20 seconds, it's been pretty good. What the fuck? Okay. But yeah, Jones, I think Jones will be the best of the guard group, but I still don't have high expectations. I think he'll have games where he looks good and then games where he doesn't look so good, but the offense will still be good no matter what, unless there's injuries. The O-line staying healthy is very important, because if you start to lose any of these guys, especially on the interior, you're looking a little scared. Ryder, did you used to coach? A lot of your comments are coaching terms, like because I used to coach high school football. I've never coached. I mean, I've done a little like helping like with younger, but no, I do like scouting stuff. So I've done a lot of studying from like what coaches say, so we can like learning the language and that type of thing. But more on the scouting side for me. My fans have been I do think fans are over worried about the O-line, but the O-line will still be an issue just because that's the nature of the game. Most teams are going to have struggles with O-line at some point in the season. Most teams don't have good O-lines. There's very few that are like very good. But yeah, then we'll go to Eichenberg. Now, I'm not the biggest Eichenberg supporter, but I'm also not the biggest Eichenberg hater. There's a lot of Liam haters. Because I do like to give credit where credit is due, even though he's not my favorite player to watch. Last year, I actually think he played better than most people think. He struggled really early on. That first Bills game, he was awful, horrible. Tell it as it is when he had to play center. When he played right guard, which I think right guard is the easiest position to play in the system because everyone that played right guard actually had pretty good tape at right guard for the most part. He played pretty solid. He even had some good games at left guard. So, I think Eichenberg will be fine. I actually think he'll probably play above most people's expectations. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he improved. I've seen some people think they're going to see like an Eichenberg level jump to like what Austin Jackson had last year. I don't think it will be like that. I think Jackson took a pretty big jump. I think Eichenberg will take like a slight jump. He'll do a decent enough job in the running game. And then why he won't look terrible is because of the scheme. The scheme will protect him a lot in pass protection. If he's playing guard. If he has to play center, I think that's where some of the struggles come in because I think when he has to snap and then get hands-on, he starts to be a little more uncomfortable. I think he will be the backup center, though. I think he has snapping experience with Tua. I do think Andrew Meyer, who we'll talk about in a second, might take over eventually, but I think they would feel more comfortable with Eichenberg getting snaps with Tua because he has more experience. Liam D- to D+. Pretty much. I mean, it's tough to grade these guards because like as players, yeah, I would probably grade him as a D level player or something like that, right? But in this system, it does like a very good job of helping him out and not making him look like a D level player for the most part. He'll have reps that look like it, but then like there will be players where I'm like, oh, he's playing like a C for the most part in this game because he's not asked to do a whole ton. Oh, this is true. Jackson, yeah. Shout out Jackson. I think big shout out to him. Who's the inactive O-line guy, Paul or Meyer? Ooh, interesting. Let me think about this. We don't really have a lineman on the practice squad I would elevate, so... Because I think they're going to keep all guards. That's tough. I'd have to think about it. But yeah, then we'll go to Lester. Lester's the other guard. We talked about Lester a little bit earlier. I would have kept Driscoll over him. I don't think Cotton's the best fit in the system. I don't think he's the most athletic. I will say in the preseason, he wasn't horrible. Like in the snaps he played, I thought he played fine. He had some bad reps, had some good reps. I think he understands what he's supposed to do. I think he's a pretty smart player. I'll give Cotton credit for that. Like he has some good power to his game, and I think he's pretty smart. I just think with his athleticism, he will always be sort of limited. Now, you don't need to be as athletic at guard in the system because they ask for really big athletes at tackle and center to get like the reaches and stuff. You kind of just need to be able to like cut off a 3-tech on play side runs, and then maybe on like the backside of runs, cut off a 2-eye 1-tech type of player. If you can do that. But I don't. If Cotton has to play, I think he's the weakest guard of the bunch. I think he can do, at best, a fine job, but then he'll have games where he does come in and does like a really poor job. So it's whatever. Lester pulling was not pretty. Yeah, that's definitely not a part of his game. And then the last of the active roster, there's some practice squad players. There's not too much to say here. I don't really have high opinions about Hardy Anderson. We have Chase and Hines, who's been around. We have Bayron Matos. Those are the O-linemen on the practice squad. Not too much to say there. I think the only one who would have a chance of really seeing playing time is if the guards got injured and maybe they elevate Hines. But not too much to say about the rest of the group. But Andrew Meyer. You know me, I'm a big Andrew Meyer guy. I'm probably one of the biggest on the Andrew Meyer train. Love his athleticism. I love how he looked in preseason. He had some negative reps that I've showed. I did, a film breakdown on him recently. If you guys didn't check that out, it was probably like within the last week, probably like 5-6 days, if I had to guess. I don't think he'll see playing time as the immediate backup center. I think that would be Eichenberg. So now that I think about it, it would probably be Meyer that's inactive, if I had to guess, early on. But I think they really like him. I think it's hard to find centers with that skill set, with that level of athleticism. He also, I thought, showed improvement. I thought play strength and anchor were his biggest issues in college. And it is still something he needs to improve at for sure. But it already looked better in the preseason than it did look in college at any point. So that's good. But he's a guy that can cut off, players. He can get out in space on screens, on those reverses, end around type stuff. Get out in space. He can do a lot of those reps. I like Meyer as a developmental center. I don't think we're going to see, unless there's multiple injuries, I don't think we're going to see him this season. Maybe a few snaps, but my expectations are for him are down the line. Yes, I agree. Yeah. All your guys' points about the finally having a center to develop. And we have, and I think Brewer is a true center too. I've seen people talk about moving Brewer to guard. I would not do that. Brewer is a true center, especially within this scheme. But yeah, that's basically the O-line. That's the whole offense pretty much. I don't know if you guys have any more, before we move to the defense, do you guys have any questions, like specifics about the offense, players, anything? Robert Jones, did we forget him? Was that the universe speaking? I talked about Robert Jones, unless maybe there was like an ad or it was lagging during that point, but I talked about him for a while. Who's the first guard I talked about him. Yeah, I think they're going to keep Meyer on the 53. They do not want to risk him. I only think they would, that would be like a way down the line thing if they went in that direction and they tried to sneak him onto the practice squad, which is, there's potential for that. But Robert Jones, if you didn't hear me talk about him, I'll keep it quick because we just talked about him. But I have not super high expectations, but I do think he'll be the best of the guard bunch, basically. And probably be a starter the whole year if he's healthy at either guard spot. Starting the year at left guard. Will Lamb or Patrick Paul go in place of Teron Armstead his injury? I think Lamb. Early on, Lamb for sure. Would I be surprised if it changes at some point? No, but I think it would be Lamb. Why did Miami let go of James Blackman? That was last year, right? Just too many bodies, and I don't know. I don't think he performed too well last year. Unless Wynn actually comes back, Meyer's safe on the 53, in my opinion. Yeah, that's probably fair. I just can't think of a reason, because them cutting Driscoll tells me that they really want to keep Meyer on the roster, right? So, unless, like Wynn were to come back, and even if Wynn were to come back, I think that would be way down the line. There'd probably be injuries at other spots, so you'd probably have a spot open anyways, but yeah. And Lamb can't play guard? No. Lamb's not a guard either. He's played some guard in the past. It's not very pretty. They tried doing the same thing with Keon Smith. They've tried Keon Smith at guard. He tore his ACL. He was also bad at guard. He is a tackle only. There's just certain players. There's a build, and it depends on scheme too. There's certain schemes I'm sure they might be able to play guard in. Some of them, Patrick Paul cannot play guard. He's way too tall, does not have the leverage to play guard. He would struggle pretty mightily in there. But yeah. Yeah, this is a good point. I haven't really talked about, I've just been talking as player specific, but yeah, I do expect, kind of like the cheat motion last year, we will see a component we have not seen yet. I think we kind of saw a sneak peek of some stuff in the preseason, like that motion with the tight end, like that I've shown in the Julian Hill video. It's nothing crazy, but it's something subtle. I'm thinking of those type of little nuance changes. Like the first year, it was that seam rail slide RPO. We ran that seam rail slide RPO so much, introduced that, and but yeah. Okay, hold on, let me see your guys' questions here. McDaniel, yeah, Ryder pivots the scheme. I think the 49ers cut Mike Nugent, center, Michigan. I'd like to tuck away center on the practice squad too. Yeah, that would be interesting. But I don't know if they'll do that, but we'll see. Time wise, we would save next year if we cut Smythe. Also, do you think Rucci has the capability of becoming the next Hill? I actually do not know about the contract on Smythe. So someone. But yeah, I don't know the contract on Smythe. I imagine you probably wouldn't lose too much if it's going into next year. Off the top of my head, I know they restructured him, so it probably got pushed back a little bit. I do think Rucci could. I don't think Rucci will be a player this year, but I do think there is a possibility if he sticks around the team that he could be a blocking tight end down the line for you. Maybe not to what I expect Julian Hill to be, but I do think Rucci can be like a quality blocker for you. Not too much as a receiver, but yeah. Did you ever do a film review on Matt Lee, the Miami center, right? No, I didn't. I did watch film on Matt Lee. I actually liked him as a late round option. Hasn't he looked pretty good? Who took him? I'm pretty sure he's actually looked pretty good in the preseason, from what I heard. I didn't watch him in the preseason though. Except, yeah, I agree. Yeah, you hate when they call it cheap motion. We're gonna see a lot more tight end calls this year. Yes, I agree for sure. Do you think wins in the season opener Thursday? It's Chiefs Ravens, right? I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I'm gonna go with the Chiefs. But that game can go either way. I'd have to look at, there's like certain things you can look up to see how like teams match up. Like statistically, there's like what teams like to run and how teams fend against it. But I do think the Ravens potentially losing McDonald is probably their biggest, like their defensive coordinator probably will hurt them early on. A little bit. Not a ton, but I think that's why I would take the Chiefs. But yeah, let's go to the defense. Rucci at fullback is interesting. Yeah, I think that is also something we could see. You got a couple you mentioned fullback. I don't know if it'll be a fullback replacement, because I have seen him take a few fullback reps. And I think he looked much more comfortable at tight end. And I think some people think he's smaller than he actually is. Like he looks smaller than he is. I think it's the number that makes him look smaller, but he's actually a pretty big tight end. So I do think he's more of an inline blocker, but I do think he can give you some fullback reps, but I don't think he's going to be a full on fullback. Oh yeah, here's what Garrett said. 2025 money for Smythe is 2 million, 2.6 in dead money, and then 2.1 in saving. So you could cut him, but you probably would just keep him at that point, or they could just restructure again. But yeah, I pride myself that Hall will become a comp pick. Yeah, we'll see. But let's go to the defense, which I also have pretty high expectations for the defense. Obviously, high expectations for the offense all around. Even though I don't have high expectations for the interior line, I think overall for the offense, very high. One of the best in the league, if not the best. And I expect improvement. I actually think they'll be better overall this year than last year because of some of the players they added. And I think some of that will come later on because some of the receivers are injured and things like that. But going to the defense, we got... Start with the D-line. We'll go with Zach Sealer, Benito Jones, Calais Campbell, Brandon Peely, and Deshaun Hand. I think this is probably the group that will technically have the fall off because if you lost Christian Wilkins. But I think this will be if you look at the Ravens defense in the past and Anthony Weaver, he's gotten a lot of production out of guys who were not high draft picks in Baltimore because he was a D-line coach. They do a really good job with their twists and stunts up front. They do a good job of getting people simulated pressures, those types of things. He gets them these looks and gets schemed up pressures. That's kind of what I was trying to say. But he gets them schemed up looks. I think Zach Sealer, I'm expecting to have a very good year. Just as good as he always is, maybe even slightly better. I expect the defense. Yeah, I expect the defense to look better. Maybe not right away, but down the line, I think, sometimes it takes a while to get used to the new system, but I think they're bought in more. I expect they feel that they'll get some looks. So Sealer, high expectations. I think the rotation, we're deeper. I think we have more bodies in this room now. If you look, Wilkins led all defensive tackles and snaps last year, and I believe Sealer was fourth. So we just played them a ton, and then Raekwon Davis played a little bit, and then no one else really played a couple snaps. I think in this defense, we'll see our defensive tackles at the top play 60-something% of the snaps. Everyone else in a clean rotation, keeping people fresh. That's very important. I think that's huge. Just helping people be productive. I think if Benito Jones just returned to practice, so that's nice. I think I have I think he'll be a solid nose tackle, one tech. I think he'll do a good job for us against the run. I think that will help us. Because I think we kind of struggled against the run in the preseason. I think he'll be the one that can help us kind of turn that around. Keep your linebackers clean, because he can take on some double teams and, shed some people. But yeah, I like Benito. Calais Campbell. I know some people I've seen some people like hype up Calais Campbell as like he's going to be our biggest addition. He's going to make a huge impact. I do think Calais Campbell will make an impact. I don't know if I'm as high on that as them. I think he'll be pretty solid. He'll be within the rotation. He'll play a decent amount of snaps. He'll be a starter for you. But he is older. He's getting up there. He can also give you big edge snaps. So like if you want to move him out to play as like the 7, 6, even 9 tech at times, he can give you those snaps, which he might play that early on in the season because we'll get to the edge group. I think they're going to slow. The edge group is going to be a little slower at the start of the season. But Campbell will have some production. Very long. He'll be a good player for you. Then those will be like your starters in base. Benito Jones will be a base starter, but your base will really be nickel, so he won't be on the field in nickel, that type of thing. But Campbell will be pretty productive all around versus the run, versus the pass. I don't think I'm going to expect like some crazy elite impact from him like some people are, but yeah, pretty solid. And then we have Deshaun Hand. Clearly, they like to keep him around. I actually thought Hand didn't play a ton in the preseason, but he was like a guy they felt comfortable with. He actually looked pretty solid. I actually think he's someone they feel comfortable with playing as like a backup to Campbell and Sealer because he has some good versatility. I like his versatility. I actually think he'll be better this year than last year because of the system and because of the rotation. He'll get more reps because last year he was on the team and just didn't play a ton. So I think he'll be more in the rotation now. And I think the system just fits him better with how they utilize people. He'll get more like one-on-one matchups, more schemed up things. So, and then Brandon Peely. I'm going to make a video on Brandon Peely soon. I think Brandon Peely is one of the guys I expect to make the biggest jump from last year to this year. I feel like he looked way better in the preseason. He's a nose tackle, and he's a very different nose tackle than Benito Jones because I think he's a more explosive player. He'll get after the quarterback better than Benito. He won't be as consistent versus the run, but Peely showed a lot of improvement from this preseason to last preseason, so big ups to him. I like the group. It's not the strongest group on the team, but I think it's the one that will get a lot of help schematically and will probably do better than people expect, especially as the season goes on. We also have like Jonathan Harris on the practice squad, who I think is not a bad practice squad addition. I made a video on Naquan Jones, who would be like your third nose tackle, who I could see getting elevated if we see injuries there, and actually wouldn't be that bad for the system either, who could be like a Peely or Benito replacement if that was needed. Oh yeah, Dolphins are 7-0, Kevin Harlan. Kevin Harlan's a legend. But yeah. Is Cam Smith a bust? No. It's too early for that. Yeah, I know front office, yeah. Well, the thing with Peely over Gallimore is they just play different positions. Peely is more of a interior and will be mostly one tech type of player, play some nose. He can do some 3 tech stuff, but Gallimore is more of like a 3 tech, even played a lot as like they saw him as like a big edge at times in the preseason. And I actually I think over, like Gallimore played more like better in the first game, but I think throughout the preseason, Peely played more consistent and better than Gallimore did. Gallimore had some big explosive plays, but he's not as consistent as Peely was. Raekwon Davis. I'm not a big Raekwon Davis fan, so I don't think it's that big of a loss. I just don't think Raekwon's played very good. I'm surprised he got paid as much as he did by, was it Indianapolis? Yeah, that's the D-line group. I think they'll outperform expectations to what people expect, and that mostly has to do with scheme, in my opinion. And I think the players just feel comfortable within the scheme. Then the edge group. Let's go to the edge group. When healthy, probably one of the strongest groups on the roster, but I don't have super high expectations. I think they'll, like early on, I think they're going to kind of struggle. We have Jalen Phillips. I think Phillips is one of the best players on the team when healthy. But how healthy will he be this season? That's the one where I'm like, I don't know. Like, will he be back to full strength? Not early on, but will he get back there at all this season? I hope so. Because if he is, I think Phillips is actually one of the more underrated edges in the league. I don't think he gets the props he deserves. Love Phillips. We can talk a little bit about Chubb. I don't think Chubb will be a super impact this season. Like, obviously, he's going to miss multiple games. I think he's more of a late season impact for us. Hopefully he can return and do some good work because we need bodies at the position. I think Ogba will be solid for us. Nothing crazy, but I think he'll get the job done. I think he'll be more of a hand in the dirt, which is nice because in Fangio's system he had to play too much standing up and just didn't fit. That fits his skill set better. Hopefully he can kind of return to like a couple of seasons ago form against the run because he kind of struggled versus the run last year. And then just make a couple impact pass rush plays. We have Chop. I think Chop will be a big impact pass rusher, whether it's on the outside, standing up in the interior. I don't have high expectations for him as an early down defender as of yet, but I do think he'll have some big impact plays as a pass rusher, and that will be fun to see. We also have Quentin Bell. I don't have really any expectations for Quentin Bell. I don't know what to expect from him at all. I know he was super hyped up in training camp. There's no film on for me to work on other than the preseason stuff. He barely played in the preseason. There wasn't really much to see other than you can clearly see he is fast and explosive, but other than that, like I didn't see too much pass rush move from him. He looked fine versus the run, so I think we're going to see Quentin Bell early on and see some playing time out of him, but I don't have super high expectations. And then Mo Kamara. I actually think Kamara has a chance to see some playing time early on. Maybe not right away, but with the Chubb injury, with Phillips working back, I think Kamara might be part of the rotation because he can set the edge. He can play versus the run. I don't know how much he's going to be productive as a pass rusher yet. I hope he is because he was pretty good at that in college. But it's a different game coming to the NFL, so it might be a slow development for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sees some early down work to set the edge. If you need a spell like Ogba or something, you know. And that's the kind of the edge group. Let's see. We have on the practice squad. Oh yeah, we signed William Bradley King. He was from the Patriots. Actually, I watched William Bradley King's preseason film. He's one of the guys I watched that we recently signed, of the few that we signed. He actually looked pretty intriguing, athletic, long. He caused multiple penalties. He got held a lot in that preseason. He actually looked pretty good, and like apparently he had a pretty solid camp too. So I don't mind adding guys like that to the practice squad. There's some development upside there, but don't have like huge expectations for it. But he was intriguing. Out of the guys I watched, I was like, oh, he's one of the more intriguing ones. Some of the other guys, I'm like, oh, they're just bodies. Let's go to the off-ball linebacker room. So it seems, obviously, Jordan Brooks, David Long, top two. They'll be out there majority of the time. Anthony Walker, I don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the season. I don't know. Is he practicing yet? I don't think so. It seems like we're more confident to him getting closer and closer, though, because they didn't put him on an injury list, so they do think he will play at some point. I think when Walker's back and healthy, he will see playing time in the rotation. He'll get snaps out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like 20 snaps in a game, 15 to 20 snaps. I think he's a pretty solid third linebacker, so I actually prefer this linebacker group compared to last year. We kept 5, which was interesting. They really wanted to keep Tyndall around. Tyndall showed improvement in the preseason, and they obviously wanted to keep Riley for the veteran presence. The special teams, I don't have huge things for Duke Riley, huge expectations, but David Long and Jordan Brooks, very fun group. I'm actually making a video tomorrow on David Long and Jordan Brooks, a video combined where I talk about how they're going to work together, some of the preseason film we had of them. They are flying around the field, man. They are moving. Love how fast they play. David Long, we know what to expect. Very good run defender. I have my, feelings about him in coverage. It's not the greatest, but his ability as a run defender is so good. I do think this system will be easier for him in coverage. He doesn't have to do as much communication. I think Brooks helps him a ton because Brooks' communication is so good in pass coverage. I think Brooks, I've talked about it. Jordan Brooks is going to be one of the biggest impact players for us this season. I think he's a great scheme fit. He has a very similar skill set to like play style to Roquan Smith. I'm not saying he's Roquan Smith's level because Roquan's like one of the best in the league, but I think Brooks has a super high upside, super athletic, can fly around the field, can do stuff in coverage, can make plays versus the run sideline to sideline. I love Jordan Brooks. I have extremely high expectations for him. I do think there is a chance. I think similar to last season, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins kind of start slow versus the run, but eventually get fine against it, get the run fits going. I think the linebackers could see some struggles there potentially, but I have good feel for them. I haven't heard much about, Poyer's been injured, but I do believe he is practicing now. Yeah, he's had like something on his one of his fingers broken or something. Maybe it's a thumb. But I think the up-ball linebacker group is clearly one of the groups I have much higher expectations for this year than last year. Last year I didn't really have too many expectations for them, so really looking forward to them. Jags running game was awful last year. Yeah, they're very hit or miss. ETN can be a very hit or miss runner, so that's going to be a big part of the game. If the Dolphins slow down their running game, don't allow that to get going, I think they can really get after it on defense. But yeah, high expectations for the 3 linebackers if they're healthy. David Long, Jordan Brooks, and Anthony Walker, they need to stay healthy. That's very important. And then Channing Tindall, will he actually see playing time this year? I don't know. Not if there's injuries. Even if there's injuries, he hasn't seen playing time. I would like to see Tindall get on the field, and if he gets on the field in like a very specific passage, for him to just rush the quarterback. Because that's where I would feel comfortable with Tindall on the field, is as a pass rusher. He gets after it for sure. Then we will go to don't sleep on ETN. ETN's fine. ETN's one of those guys who obviously plays pretty physical and pretty athletic, but he's just very inconsistent with his vision. So, and I just don't like running backs that clearly don't feel the game super well, and I think ETN's one of those players. Then to the DB room. Let's go over all of them. We go to I think the DB room is huge. I think it's a very quality room for the Dolphins. I think it'll be big for them. They obviously have a lot of bodies that they like. We have Kendall Fuller. I expect pretty solid things from Kendall Fuller, more than Xavier Howard. I think he's better than Howard, so I have pretty good expectations for him. I think he fits the scheme super well. Then we might see him move around. Then we have Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey will play multiple spots, inside, outside, in the box, some snaps at safety. I think he will do everything, and I think that's one of the biggest differences from this year to last year. Is last year Ramsey did not move at all, and now having Ramsey's full versatility skill set will be so big for like disguising coverages and things like that. So big expectations, not just for Ramsey obviously because he's a great player, but for his usage. Everyone else at corner, Kohu. I think Kohu will see a jump this year compared to last year. I think he just strictly plays a nickel, which I am expecting him to mostly play the nickel. I think he can get the job done and be a solid nickel for you. Lagging a little bit, but hopefully we go back. Saran Neal, mostly expectations on special teams. He'll probably see some snaps throughout the year, but mostly just really good special teams player. Then everyone else you have, so Cam Smith is on IR. I do think when Cam Smith comes back, he will start to see plays in the rotation. They got to see what they have out of him. So I do think, and I'm higher on Cam Smith than most Dolphin fans, it seems. I think he's a good player. When he's on the field, he's looked good, in my opinion. He just hasn't had a real chance yet because Fangio hated him and he's had some injuries. Then Ethan Bonner. I think Ethan Bonner has shown enough to me where I'm like, I feel comfortable with him as a depth player. I think if he went on the field and had to play, I think he can do a decent enough job. So my expectations are fairly solid for Ethan Bonner. I think we see more out of him this year than we did last year. I feel good about him. Storm Duck probably won't see too much playing time this year. I think a limited amount of snaps. Injuries are going to happen at corner, but I do like keeping Duck on the roster. I like him as a future developmental guy. He showed a lot in the preseason, so. But he's probably the last guy who gets in on the rotation out of the corner ribs. Yeah, this is like the biggest thing for our defense this year. Like, just the different looks is so big. And it's everywhere. It's being able to, like, mug your linebackers in the A gap, have them standing up over there, then drop into coverage or blitz. Then you have, your corners moving around, playing multiple different spots, showing blitz, dropping back, showing they're going to drop into coverage, they blitz, that type of thing. That's a big thing. But yeah, I feel pretty good about the corner room. I actually think it's one of the stronger position groups on the team. You got veterans, you got young guys, you got hungry UDFAs, a lot of UDFAs on this team that are, rookies, former UDFAs. So yeah. And that's pretty much the corner room. Trying to think, do we have anyone else here on the practice squad? Let me look at it. I don't think we have any corners on the practice squad now. Oh, we have Isaiah Johnson. My bad. I made a video on Isaiah Johnson today. What am I talking about? Isaiah Johnson, great practice squad developmental player. Excited to see his future, but not too much this year. Okay. Safety. I think the safety room has improved. I think Javon Holland will be good in the system. I think he'll get a lot of different usages. I think last year, safety is very important in the Fangio system, but you just get to really play one spot. So I think Holland's always been a very versatile player. If you watched him at Oregon, he played a lot of nickel at Oregon. He played in the box. He played single high early on in his career. At Miami, he's played a lot deep, like single high, two high looks, quarter looks. I think in this system, he'll get some of like that, like him and Ramsey will play some of that Hamilton type role. So I think utilizing his versatility will help him out. So I have pretty good expectations for Holland to be pretty successful. I think Poyer is a big addition to the group. For everyone else, I think some people expect Poyer to play like amazing. I think Poyer will play like pretty good, like solid, not terrible football, not great football though. But I think he's just a huge addition for like just a veteran presence, knows how to win, understands like where he needs to be. He's a very smart football player, but he has lost a step. I think he'll see some work in the box. He actually looked pretty good in the box versus the run last year in Buffalo. So I think that's kind of what I'm expecting to see from Poyer. And yeah, so he'll be fine. I think Marcus May and Elijah Campbell I think Elijah Campbell just continues to look better. He actually looks like when he's had to play, Elijah Campbell actually hasn't looked that bad at safety. He's also a very good special teams player. I actually like Campbell a lot. I actually think he's one of the more underrated players on the team. So if he has to play, I actually don't feel too bad. He just continues to improve. He's a hitter too. And then Marcus May just looked better every preseason game. Clearly a veteran, knows what he's doing. I like him as a depth safety. So I think you're probably better up top and you have better depth. And then you also have Patrick McMorris on IR. So McMorris is going to miss your first 4 games. But I'm a very big McMorris fan. He's won me over. Probably more of a future player for you, but hopefully we get to see McMorris at some point throughout this season. And we're going to see 3 safety sets. The Ravens ran 3 safety sets last year. We're probably going to see 3 safety sets. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Marcus May or Elijah Campbell. I wouldn't be surprised if it's either one that comes in first in those 3 safety looks. I think they like both of them a lot. Any other safeties we have? We have Jordan Colbert on the practice squad. They decided to keep him as your developmental guy. He had some plays on preseason, but nothing too crazy to write home about there. IR, we obviously have Craycraft eligible to return, Cam Smith eligible to return. We went over all the starters, but yeah. Patrick McMorris is on IR and will return. On PUP, we have Cameron Good, Isaiah Wynn, Bradley Chubb, Odell Beckham Jr. They'll all miss first 4 games of the season. Then everyone else on IR is out for the season, like Taj Washington, Grayson Murphy, Keon Smith, Vandenberg, Anthony Schwartz, Wyatt Ray, Sean Harlow, Cam Brown. Those guys are all stash players. You're better on top. Mark Holland isn't a first rep and already said he wants the fullback. We need to reconcile with that. Yeah. Poyer will play smart. Yeah. Bro, trading Holland is not good. I wouldn't trade Holland. I don't know if we'll be able to keep him. We'll see how it works out. Hopefully they try to get him back, but sometimes it's just the nature of the business. I think Holland's a pretty good player. I actually think some people in the fan base I've seen think Holland is not even good, but he's pretty damn good. And I do think this system was very safety friendly last year, so we'll see how that plays out for him. It will utilize his versatility. Ooh. Yeah, only Craycraft. Yeah, I know. They have the IR return designations. But McMorris is eligible to return, and because he was placed after the 53, so he can return. On our lads, they have it as DFR, so designated for return. And then we obviously have the guys on PUP who can return. Yeah, you guys have any? That's the whole group. I'm not going to break down the special teams players. I'm not a special teams expert, anyways. Do you guys have had any more questions? Anything to talk about? We've been going for a while now. Got everything we want to talk about. So next stream it will be breaking down the Jaguars stuff. We'll do like a preview of the Jaguars game. We'll go over their roster, see where maybe we can match up against them, how we can attack them. Maybe I'll have clips, maybe not. I'm definitely gonna have clips on the previews throughout the year because we'll have we can look at previous games. But since this is the first game of the season, I think the Jaguars are gonna look pretty different than they did last year, so it might be kind of pointless to pull up the clips. But yeah. Well, we did extend Sealer, right? We extended Sealer during the season. So we have Sealer for like 3 years. something like that. Yeah. Holland's a baller. Yeah, Holland's definitely a very good player. Definitely our best in the safety room. I think the one thing, when it comes to safety play, it's one of the positions where, I mean, it's not one of the premium positions, and the reason it's not one of the premium positions is because when you're playing deep safety, which Holland had to do a lot of in Fangio's system, there's just a lot of plays where you go uninvolved because you're just playing over the top. They don't target you. It's a run play up the middle that gets stuffed. Like, there's just a lot of plays you just don't get involved because that's just the nature of the position. So that's why I think Holland will have more production this year, because he's going to be moved around, be allowed to be more involved, which I think will help his case to get more money too. Yeah, I got him pretty cheap. Yeah, I know. Well, I saw grinding the tape, right? Kyle, he made a mock draft and he had the Dolphins taking Malachi Starks for the Dolphins in the first round, which Malachi Starks is already my early favorite player, so I wouldn't be mad about that if we win safety. I do think safety is a need next year. If you look at some of these positions and you look at who will be in need next year, I think safety is one of them, whether you re-sign Holland or not, because I think Poyer and May are kind of like one-year rentals. So, and then after that, you only have like Elijah Campbell and Patrick McMorris, so you probably want some more guys there. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins captains? I mean, I like the captain group. It's pretty expected across the board, I think. It's nice to see, like, the David Long one, it seemed like it meant a lot to him, so I like that David Long got involved. He's very passionate. I mean, listen to David Long talk. That guy loves football. But yeah, everything else seems pretty normal to me. What else? Become a member of your channel. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I also have I think some people asked to do like a PayPal thing. Yeah, I have that. There's like a PayPal thing in my description if they don't want to do the whole donate to YouTube or whatever. Who should have made cap that got left out? I mean, we already have 8 captains. It's hard to... I guess they could have done like a special teams captain, like one of the special teams guys, because they didn't really... Some teams usually have like a special teams captain, so like, I guess that could have been like a Saran Neal, but I don't know how he is in the locker room. I think who else could have been a captain? I guess like Javon Holland could have been a captain. Poyer could have been a captain, but he hasn't only been here for a year. I like the captain because it's mostly people who have been around except for Calais Campbell, but it makes sense because Calais seems like a clear leader on the team. Like, he is like really stepping up as a leader, so yeah. Phillips lost out due to injury. Phillips would have been cool. I'm trying to think who else could potentially be a leader. I'm looking at names, but yeah. Probably not too many outside of like the safety room. But yeah. I think that's it. I think so, yeah, tomorrow film breakdown will be on Jordan Brooks and David Long. We'll see how they work as a duo, because it's one of my favorite duos to watch because they just play so aggressive. So it'll be very, very fun to watch. Then after that, maybe like Brandon Peely will look at the Jaguars preview that. So you like our defensive coordinator? Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously it's kind of a shot in the dark because, he's only been defensive coordinator once in his career, but it wasn't really his defense. It was the head coach's defense. But I like the idea. He seems very smart, seems very likable, which is big. But I like where he's coming from with Baltimore. And Baltimore, I think that Mike McDonald type of system, him bringing that in excites me a lot because I think that is like the most innovative, like next top defense in the NFL right now. So I'm very excited. Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys